Hello, welcome to this tutorial. My name is Alex. In this tutorial we're going to review how to install and configure the RQS System Server from scratch following some easy steps in less than 20 minutes. So let's begin with the step number 1 that mentions that we need to check the software requirements. The SAP Business, the SQL Server, and the Internet Information Services are installed and running correctly. We need these tools because the RQS system relies on the SAP Business One to grab the information such as the price list and the customer information, and to store the quotes created with the Android application. The SQL Server is used to store the RQS system database, and the Internet Information Services are used as the web entrance to the actual system when you're using the Android mobile application. So first of all, I'm going to see that the SAP is already running. As you can see, the SAP application is running correctly, and I have the version 8.80. The SQL Server is already installed and running correctly. You must remember that the SQL Server is also installed when you install the SAP Business One. Excuse me. I'm going to show you that the SAP Server databases are installed on the same computer as the SQL Server. You may install the SAP Server and the SQL Server on different computers, but in this case we have them all on the same computer. You can see the databases, SBR Common and the test databases for SAP. And the Internet Information Services, which is a feature of Windows that comes with Windows 7 Enterprise, is also installed and running correctly on this computer. If you don't know how to install the Internet Information Services, I suggest you to see the tutorial to install and configure the IIS, since it requires a little bit of effort to have it running correctly. We're going to download for the step number 2 the application. I'm going to open the Google Chrome and go to lexuga.com.mx/RQS. Once it's loaded, click on the Try RQS System. Choose the versions for the SAP system you have installed on your computer. In this case I have the 8.80. If you have the 8.82, download that version. I already downloaded and unzip it, so I'm gonna double click it and start the installation wizard. Click OK. So the wizard starts. I'm gonna click next, agree the license agreement. So the components only have one single component, so I'm gonna leave it that way. Click next, and I'm going to leave the default directory, and I suggest you to do that because if you want to follow the examples, it will be useful to have the same directory system. So I'm going to click install. So the wizard starts copying all the files. When it finishes, click terminate. And as you can see on the installation directory, there's a lot of applications, a database directory, quotes directory, and the RQS web service that will actually receive the incoming entrance from the web. So we already download and install it. We're going to install the database. We have two options to do that. We have an application, the RQS config tool, with a button that creates the RQS database from scratch. That means that it has no information at all, and it will save the RQS database file on the default SQL Server installation directory. The second way we can install the database is to attach the database included on the directories. Brand new, an example. The difference between these two databases is that the one contained in the example directory already has some information captured in advance, so you can start playing with the items and the option templates. If you choose to use the brand new, you won't see any information at all. I suggest you to use the example database if this is your first time, so you can see if the system is running correctly. So to attach the example database, go to SQL Server Management Studio, right click on it and execute it as an administrator, because since we're attaching a new database, we need to have administrator privilege. Right click on databases and attachment, and in the dialog that appears, you're going to click on add, and we're going to use the example database as I mentioned before. Go to the RQS System directory, database, example, and choose the RQS System. Click OK, click OK. The database is already attached to the system. So the step 4, we're going to use an application called Test SAP Connection. Go to the RQS directory, the default installation directory. Which is RQS System and find the Test SAP connection. Execute the application, and on the dialog that appears, there's a lot of information that you can configure to start playing with the system. We have two SQL servers directions, the ones that hold the RQS database that we just attached, and the SQL server that holds the SAP databases. In this case, as we saw on the Management Studio, we have the SAP databases and the RQS on the same server. So in this case, I'm going to use the same computer name, which is Albert-PC, and I'm going to type in the credentials. If you will have the SAP databases installed on a different server or on a different computer, then you must state that on this text box. In this case, we have the same computer, install everything. The SAP server, as you already saw, it's already installed on the same computer. So I'm going to type in the same computer name and type in the same credentials. And the credentials to access to the SAP is the same credentials that you use to unlock the screen, remember? So I'm gonna type in the same credentials right here. You all will face the first time. So as you can see, I'm using the same credentials. For the company, I'm going to type in the companies that I'm going to be using for the samples. In this case, I have the SBO Demo US. You can see the companies on administrator. You can see that I have 3 companies, and I'm going to use the SBO Demo US. Click Save, and you can try or test the connection between the RQS and the SAP by going to the SAP tab. Click Get Companies, It will show me all the companies that I already show you on SAP. I'm going to connect to the SBO demo. Wait for the interconnection to establish. So once it is connected, I can access the information from the SAP server. So I'm going to check the information for the RQS, go to SQL and click on Field Machine List, and you can see that some information is already stored in there, and that's because we use the database on the example directory. If we will have used the brand new, or if we created the database programmatically by using the RQS config tool, we won't see anything here because the databases will be completely new. That's why I suggest you to start with the example database, so you can see that we have a lot of information already here. So the configuration works correctly and everything is connected okay. The difference between these companies is that the company mentioned or typed in here is the one that is going to be used with the web server. So I'm going to install the RQS web entry. To do that, I'm going to open the Internet Information Services. I'm going to websites and add a new website. I'm going to type in RQS System. For the application tool, I'm going to select Net 4.0. As I mentioned before, if you don't know how to configure the IIS, see the tutorial for the Internet Information Services. And the physical access, I'm going to use RQS System, RQS Web. That's why I suggested you to use the default directories. As you can see, it's the same physical path. For the port, I'm going to use number 80 and leave the Start Web immediately. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to warn you about the port. It's being used by another website, but in this case, the other websites are going to be shut down, so it is okay to accept that warning. As you can see, the website is already installed and running, so I'm going to check that out. Go to the Google Chrome, type in localhost, and we shall see our new website entry. By typing in localhost, you will access to the website internally. So right now the RQS system is making all the internal connections necessary to access the SAP server and the SQL server, and that's why it's taking a little bit longer. Once the communication is established, it will be faster. Taking a little bit. There you go. Now the system is up and running, as you can see. And if someone would like to access to your system from the internet in any part of the world, you will need to provide them the address of your computer. In this case, we don't know it yet, so we're going to find it with Google. Type my IP address, and we found out that our public address is this one. So if you type it in the address box, you will see the same result as typing localhost. The only difference is that by using my public address, anyone can access to my system on any part of the world. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to open the RQS Android database that is installed on a telephone. The RQS Android application is downloaded for free on the Google Market, so you just have to download it. Once it's installed, you just tap it, and in configuration, as you can see, I'm using the same address on my telephone. That means that when someone uses this address, will be accessing to my system. Just save the changes, and now the RQS Android application is accessing to my RQS System Server. There's one more step that we need to perform, which is we need to copy the images into the RQS web server. Go to images and paste the information right there. Now, as you can see, if you open one of the services or machines that you're offering, the information was downloaded successfully, and we have an option template where anyone can select their preferences. And based on these selections, you may see the product you're getting. You can see a preview image, the prices that are taken from the SAP server, and you can store this information on your SAP server. As you can see, it's pretty easy to install and configure the RQS system. So if you want to try it, download the trial version on this address, install it and start playing with it. And if you want to make changes, just go to the installation directory and open the RQS item editor. And load the items, and as you can see, it is exactly the same information that you saw on the mobile device. Pretty easy. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any question, don't hesitate to send it to me, and I'll be glad to answer any questions or any comment. So thanks for watching.